Okay. It's 7 o'clock, so we're gonna get going. 7 o'clock on Thursday, September 7th, I call the Wilton Board of Education meeting to order. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Public comments. The board has set aside time at the beginning and end of regular meetings for public comments for members of the public to share their views on matters involving the Wilton Public Schools and to help inform the board's decisions on such matters. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to any one subject. For the record, please also give your name and address. The board considers the views of citizens in its deliberations and welcomes and appreciates public comment. The board listens to public comment thoughtfully and with interest. The board, however, generally does not respond to public comment during board meetings by offering commentary or answering questions. The board also invites commentators and the public to contact the board or the superintendent directly with any specific questions or comments. The board, through the chair and the superintendent, may respond to questions and comments offered during public comment or shared directly. And in responding, may also direct members of the public to the appropriate staff member for a response. Are there any comments from the public? None in the room. Online, Lucille? Okay. Seeing none, there'll be an opportunity again at the end of the evening. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Board's chair report. Just have a few remarks. This is our first meeting of the year since the kids returned, and I just want to say a quick thank you to all the staff, the students, and their families for a tremendously successful start to the school year. The positive energy and community spirit is everywhere, even as the usual back-to-school quirks settle. So much work goes on behind the scenes to make the smiles I saw in all the schools last week. As I walked the schools, it was like the kids never left. Everyone hit the ground running. So thank you all for a great start to what I'm sure will be another excellent year. Superintendent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as you noted, school's back in session. And so there are lots to celebrate, and we also have some challenges. So when we get to the point of the agenda for the principals update, they can do that. They can share the celebrations. I'm going to take a few minutes and just talk to you about some of the issues that we've had this week. So I think just on the whole, what I would say is, it's been a mostly smooth opening. There are always small things along the way. As you may have heard, the first couple of days with buses, as we're getting new drivers, learning new families, they take a little longer than normal to get home. But at this point, it sounds like most of our buses are on time and getting kids to and from in the prescribed amount of time. So that's good. Everything else, just operationally is pretty solid. The heat and the humidity over the last few weeks has been really, really challenging. And so we have some indoor air concerns in a few places in two of our buildings. I'm just going to kind of walk you through that right now. So Middlebrook and Cider Mill, we have some concerns at those buildings, and I'll just offer a kudos to Jose Figueroa and his team, as he should be. Jose is very, very responsive, and Jen and Tori can speak to that. He listens carefully, takes the concerns very seriously, and follows up immediately. And so I'm really grateful for his responsiveness. I think it goes a long way in just putting people at ease when you're dealing with some of these kinds of concerns that happen sometimes naturally because of the weather. But here's kind of what we're confronting. Prior to the start of this school year at Middlebrook, two of the staff members on the yellow team reported an odor in their classrooms. And so, with Jose and the staff there, they conducted visual inspections and then extensively toured the rest of the building to see if there were similar issues anyplace else. After conducting those inspections, Jose reached out to ATC, Atlas Technical Consultants. That's that IAQ firm that we've worked with for years. There's one of their engineers, Scott Johnson, knows our buildings inside and out. And so, he came on site and performed some indoor air quality testing in several places. There were 2 classrooms, 104 and 110, so primarily on the first floor in the Sherilyn Peterson wing at Middlebrook, came back with results that were higher than normal with levels of mold spores. And then 2 other classrooms, 105 and 111, and then there was a small office in the office wing that had slightly elevated levels of mold spores. So to address that, they, in the 2 classrooms, 104 and 110, that were highly elevated, they just moved everybody out of those classrooms. Jose reached out to Restoration 1. We brought in HEPA air scrubbers, dehumidifiers to clean and to dry out the classrooms. They, custodial staff, deep cleaned those rooms. They deep cleaned the heating and ventilation and air conditioning units. They installed new filters. He also had Restoration 1 inspect spaces behind the wall, so we opened up just to make sure that we didn't have mold growing in places where we couldn't see. So we opened up a couple spaces in the walls, got up above the drop ceiling, just to, again, using an infrared camera to make sure that there was nothing growing that we couldn't see. And so the good news there is there was nothing behind the walls, nothing above the ceiling. And so we think at Middlebrook, the cause of the issue with the heat and humidity, the custodians shampooed the carpets close to the start of the school year, and so just with the humidity and the way the chillers operate, the carpets didn't dry out thoroughly, so you had some mold blooms. So anyway, so re-shampooed all the carpets, treated them with anti-mold cleansers, and then they tested again. For 7 yellow, the room 105, results were fine. In 104, 110, and 111, the results came back higher again. And so in 104, a few days ago, they took out the carpet and replaced with LVT tile. And so retested, that room's good to go. They are in the process of changing out the floors in 110 and 111. So 110, I think that process started today, and then 111 will take place probably Monday, Tuesday, so those rooms should be back to normal. You know, because this is a concern, we've got Scott Johnson from ATC coming back on Monday to also do some other testing in other parts of the building. Jose has got the dehumidifiers running in the small office. That was also a concern. And then they have reactivated their Tools for Schools team, and next week they're going to tour the whole building and just, again, record any concerns. You'll recall last year when we were going through the capital bonding process, one of the concerns that emerged was a concern about moisture in the slab in that Sherilyn Peterson wing. So if you walk through there now, you can see tiles that are bubbled. And so one of the concerns is that part of the reason those carpets aren't drying is because moisture is coming up through the ground. And so we're going to change out the floors in those other 2 classrooms. It's very likely that we'll pull the carpets out in the rest of those first floor classrooms and change them out. And so, you know, we're anticipating that, you know, the rest of the building will probably be fine, but we'll take the results when they come back. And, you know, again, we continue to kind of be led by the experts here. We had a long conversation with Scott Johnson from ATC today, and, you know, he was just kind of reflecting on the, you know, just current environmental conditions. And he said when relative humidity in buildings gets around 70%, you know, these things happen. And so, you know, he was also feeling very optimistic that, you know, once we get through this week and if the humidity breaks and the temperatures come down again, you know, then things will revert to normal. So, you know, we're going to continue to watch. We had similar issues at Cider Mill, and so that section down in, Jen, is it Cannondale? So, you know, it's like partially underground, right? So years ago, we changed out the flooring there, and so that helped at that time a great deal. But again, with the way those chiller units are set, they're drawing, you know, humid air into the building. So, you know, Jen and her staff were noticing that water was condensing on the tiles, and so Jose has made some adjustments there. They've cleaned those classrooms multiple times. They're going to continue to monitor, and we just continue to try to manage the humidity levels in the building. But there too, they're on top of it. They've moved kids out of the classroom temporarily while they go back through and clean. And I think if Scott's reporting is accurate, once we get to fairer weather, those problems should resolve also. So we will, right now we just have the raw numbers. Scott is working on developing a full report, as he typically does when they come and do air testing. He expects that he'll have that for us by the 18th of the month. And we take all that stuff, we put it up on the website under the facilities page, so people are free to to see it. Like at Middlebrook, Jen and her team have activated their Tools for Schools team, which you'll see later on when I get into the legal updates. There have been some small changes to the IAQ laws here in Connecticut, but that's really the first line of defense. Is you pull people together and you just inspect the building, and you do kind of an olfactory inspection, a visual inspection, and you focus in on where you can see and smell things, and then there's a whole process for mitigating.
With climate change, this may be part of our life going forward.
Yeah, I think probably, and we've been concerned about our mechanical units for a few years. We've been running, there's like the challenge today. The CDC guidance has not changed, right? During COVID, there were recommendations made that they should be set to bring in maximum fresh air, and in normal weather, no problem, but in days of high heat and humidity, you get these kinds of problems. And so right now, he and the other contractors we work with are just trying to figure out the balance. So keep the fresh air flowing, but also manage the humidity in buildings, and then respond to these kinds of concerns as they come up.
Do you guys have thoughts on a cost yet?
So the 104 costs, I think Jose said about $3,000. So if there are 15 classrooms, you can estimate somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000. So I will bring those estimates back to you once they're good numbers, and then we have to decide, how we want to respond to that. Are we going to try to deal with it within our operating budget, for which we did not budget for this cost? Do we want to have a conversation with the folks at the Board of Finance and see if they'll allow us to access the charter authority, to cover this cost, because it's an emergency? So I think, let's TBD on that one once we have the numbers, and then we can decide. Or I'll put it to you, you can decide.
Has Scott and his team or others been made available to staff if they have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, so Scott, that's a great question. So Joy, I don't know if he's already spoken to people. I know he's coming back Wednesday, and so he's going to speak to staff on Wednesday. If we're able to plan, if you want to have a special board meeting, he's available Wednesday night, so he could come and actually speak to all of you and just take you through the whole thing. We wanted to find an opportunity for him to speak to the Cider Mill staff as well, and so I think we're still trying to hash that out.
And I guess, then is there a method or a place you could direct, families if they have questions or concerns?
Yeah, I think right now the best thing to do would be to send questions either to me or to the principals, and then we'll funnel them. If it's Scott's the right guy to use them, they can either handle them or he will.
Okay.
Okay, and so I think Joy sent a note out to staff tonight. They'll do an update to parents and channel files.
And I'm sorry, you said additional testing coming through on Monday, so that might inform whether kind of next steps or whether we need to do a special meeting on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So I think we know what the problems are, and I think I think we've got a good plan in place. The follow-on, air testing that is being done is really, it's just to ensure that the mitigation efforts are being effective.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Kevin on this?
It's a pain in the neck.
It is, yeah. It's not welcome, not a welcome problem at this point of the year. But we'll, again, I think just go back to Jose and his team are really responsive.
Yeah.
So we're on top of it. I feel good about the progress they're making. I think the plan is good. We're being guided by good expertise. So we'll keep all of you and the rest of the community kind of updated on our progress.
So thank you to Jose for being on top of it and
Yeah, for sure.
adding extra to what they already do.
You guys are looking at all the schools. When is When is that report supposed to be out?
Yes, great question. So KG&D was the architectural firm that was contracted. They've been working all summer. Eric Heyer, actually the principal, lives here in town. He's got 2 kids here in high school. I saw him just a few days ago, and we're expecting that closer to the end of the month. So in fact, I had a meeting with him tomorrow, and so they're in the final stages.
Committee reports. I know that policy and business ops are later this month. I think teaching and learning met today.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
We did meet. We talked about our focus. Sorry, Tori, was on you. I was on Middlebrook.
Poor guy.
Just talking about the schedule changes and curriculum and how things went this summer and kind of where everybody was at this point. Math seems ready to go. They're excited. Trudy and Karen presented. Trudy shared that they're planning to implement the framework as it was intended to be, that there would be 2 activities. They would have a lesson synthesis, and then there would be practice at the end. Talked about pre-assessments a little bit, and how they were going to look at that, how their administrative review, looking at the data, and how that kind of plays a role in what they want to do next. The probability and statistics went back to the classroom and out of strides. Science, she said they're focusing on implementing the recommendations from the curriculum review. The teachers are looking at open science ed. Open sci-ed, you don't even want to know how I spelled that at first, and then I was like, duh, it's like open sci, like science and ed education. I know, I'm right. I was like, anyway, so they're implementing open sci-ed. They're going to phase it in. It looks like there's 3 units in 6th grade, there's 1 in 7th grade, and in 8th grade they're kind of do a wait and see. She felt like they've done this in the past, and the phase-in has really worked. That's the plan. ELA is the bigger one, of course. The goal was to implement 3 units, integrating the reading and the writing. They went through what the class would look like again. So the first 7 to 10 minutes would be the whole class. 30 to 35 minutes would be independent reading, writing work, which would be planned small group instruction, learning how to be responsive, and other things like that. And then the end would be a 5 to 10 minute share time. She shared that some grades are a little farther along than others, but they're going to get there. She plans to be spending at least 50% of her time at Middlebrook. So basically Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays she'll be with you. She's hoping to get to every class twice. And then the TC staff developer will be there on the 19th and the 26th. And they've worked it so that that person will be in each class by themselves, but there'll be 2 pairs. There'll be 2 sets of teachers. 2 sets of pairs, does that make sense? That will have to be together. And I think initially the hope is to look at the flow of the class period, followed by task design, and then what's next in terms of learners and kind of varying their learning profile. Our non-agenda items that we talked about, the schedule change at Middlebrook seems to be going well so far. It seems that kids are less stressed about the 60 minutes and more excited about having a choice for strides. So that was nice to hear. We talked a little bit about the shift in teachers on teams, and it seemed that this was maybe the right time to do it since we were already losing a teacher on a team anyway, and good time to restructure. And our teachers are getting used to being with each other and how to work together and whatnot. We talked a little bit about the kindergarten cutoff date, which for the next school year will be September 1st. And so Kathy and Bernadette, I think, are on it. And maybe in October we'll have a conversation about it.
Policy.
Policy. And then the last thing we talked about really briefly was just Teachers College and kind of what's going on with that and what are the implications of all of that on us. So, should be determined. That's it.
Excellent. Third summary.
Very. Yeah,
Okay.
good.
Thanks.
Okay, so now to review and discuss principals first week.
Yeah, so there are primary actors here living the day to day. So we just thought we'd give you guys a few minutes to fill in the board and anyone else listening on all the great stuff that's happening as we speak. So Kathy, want to kick us off?
Sure. All right. The air conditioning is working in most of our buildings, only a couple rooms, so accomplishment, and if you came this week, it's like, they already know it, they're good to go. The teachers have already started their work on diversity, equity, and inclusion through Real House. We sent out our parent engagement survey early this year and combined it with another parent questionnaire. So the teachers already have a bunch of information on languages spoken in the home, traditions, other things that are special to families. Today we had our first assemblies by grade level on the 3 R's, and we talked about responsibility and respect and being ready to learn and play together. And introduced a whole system for recognizing that behavior with kids with these fun little tickets, and we tasked the second graders with being role models. Yeah, first and second, they're taking the math test already. So they took the reading. I know, right? Way to bring down the crowd.
I mean, seriously.
So they took the reading on Wednesday and did makeup today. Math will be on Friday. Instructional effectiveness teams are already meeting. They're already talking about goal setting, and most want to do group goal setting, which is what they did last year. They set their goals collaboratively as an IET and did their targets that way, which was really great. And next week we have open house. So Wednesday it's preschool and kindergarten open house, and Thursday it's grade 1 and 2. So that's that. It really Bristol day. Day 8 is great. I mean, any questions?
All right, so say it around. I'd also like to thank just all our teachers, our custodians, my admin team, and our secretarial staff. If you've been on site, you'll notice a lot of different faces. So, those are the folks that kind of keep all of us in check and organized. So there'll be a little bit of a shift for everybody, and just thanking everybody in advance for any patience as we kind of work through some of those changes. But fabulous team, so we're really excited. I sent out actually just a reminder about open houses and shared that our classrooms were abuzz with all of our laughter and learning and lots of community building. We really spend a significant amount of time forming relationships and building the community. We've done a lot with what the classrooms look like, and when you guys show up at Meet the Teacher, sometimes the walls are not fully decorated, and that's very intentional because we really want our students to build that classroom and have it be theirs. And we spend a lot of time on this process. And so the students are excited, the teachers are excited to welcome our families on the 11th and the 18th for our open houses. So we're looking forward to that. We also have already begun our work with diversity, equity, inclusion, and most importantly, really hoping all of our families complete the family engagement survey. Not only does it have information to help each of our students feel like they really belong within our individual classrooms, but it also provides families to give a little bit of information to the classroom teachers about what makes their child special as a learner, and also how they could participate in future events and be more engaged in our school, which is something we're always trying to work on. So please, families, fill that out if you have not yet done so. As Kathy said, we are thrilled to be doing the NAP assessment already on day 8. So we're very excited, and but we've been very intentional with trying to make this as business as usual and trying to keep stress levels down. It's not like you walk through and kids are freaking out or anything, so it's all good. And our IETs have already been meeting and really looking at a lot of the information that came in over the spring. Our coordinators have done a fantastic job providing kind of where any kind of learning gaps have been, and teachers are already using that information to focus instruction. Additionally, we are also spending a lot of time on the 3 R's. The classroom teachers will spend that significant amount of time reviewing what that looks like at Cider Mill. And it's fabulous that there's a lot of consistency among our schools. So looking forward to the school year. Any questions? I've left out all the parts that Kevin already reviewed.
That's right.
Yeah.
So good evening. I always love the opportunity to come to the board and brag about my work and staff. So thank you for this opportunity. Just a public shout out thanks to Dean Curzay, Dean Wallace, Dean Miller for their leadership, and for just the fabulous staff at Middlebrook. They did a really nice job of just a great opening week plus 8th day, right? So it's, like you said, Ruth, the smiles are evident, and that's thanks to the adults in the building making it such a warm and welcoming place. So it's very obvious, and Kevin, I want to echo your thanks to the custodial and maintenance crews. They have been quite literally 24/7. We did not get a weekend last weekend between the work that they were doing in some of the rooms that we're having issues with, and there are crews there now working in rooms. So they're just they're tremendous, and they deserve a lot of respect and appreciation for all their efforts. So, as I shared at Teaching and Learning this week, and it was I want you to take notes in our meetings from now on.
Every meeting.
But we're just so thrilled to have kids back in the building. I talk about it being our lifeblood of our building, but we recognize just how blessed we are to work with such spectacular kids, and we're very, very lucky. And I get to start my day and end my day in our lobby and get to see all those smiling faces, and frankly, it's a heck of a good game in that regard. It's pretty awesome. So for context, it was the 8th day of school, but we haven't had 8 full days of our schedule just yet. I'll explain more about that, and I think a big hint you've already heard about with the map testing this week has already altered that a little bit. But overall, I would say the new schedule has been very well received, and the students and staff alike are providing a lot of very positive feedback, and really we're better for it because we've sheltered that time for the lessons to not be rushed, and they can be delivered in one lesson and during the time that's needed. You've heard us describe and talk about the instructional framework several times, and Karen Brennick did a really nice job with that at Teaching and Learning this week. Our schedule allows for that instructional framework design in the 60-minute lesson to take place. You may have heard us describe it at different times as the whole, small whole idea, the idea that the class period starts with a whole class experience, then some level of a mini lesson or something that's about 8 or 10 minutes or so, moving into a small group or individual work, and then back to the whole again, that synthesized work and the sharing that happens. And we're really just on the cusp of seeing the potential of all of that. It's really very exciting. As far as special ed is concerned, our special ed department has been working in the past couple of years to transition from an academic lab model in which students are working on all their goals to now a targeted skills block instruction. We piloted this last year, heard a little bit about that from Nicole last year. We had some terrific success with our 8th grade students last year. So our identified students are starting to make some really nice progress in closing the achievement gap, something we're very proud of, and something that we were talking very briefly about. We haven't talked numbers yet, but especially some tremendous growth in grades 6 and 7 in math. And we recognize there's more to do, but there's some really nice things happening there. And with our new schedule, with the longer class periods, it really gives the departments the opportunity to divide the special ed department, that is, divide the 60 minutes into 2 30-minute skill blocks. The students are grouped according to their IEP goals and objectives, and those are much smaller groups than the larger academic labs used to be, and they're focused on one skill at a time. So they're focused on math, on reading comprehension, on reading skills through fluency, decoding, writing, executive function, or work completion. Support services also have the opportunity to push in or pull out from these blocks as well. Another added bonus to the schedule is for them is depending upon their direct instruction hours, students have the available, if they have available blocks, they have the opportunity to take our intro to a language class. So this is an ungraded class that provides an opportunity for students to be exposed to vocabulary, culture, experiential learning that they've never had before. So something really celebrate there. So overall, settling into our new schedule, I've been chatting with a lot of kids at lunch this week. It's always fun as the principal to sit down and let shit and get quiet. Let's go. But I just was sitting down with them saying, what do you think? What do you think of the schedule? And 7th and 8th graders obviously have a perspective there. The 6th graders don't so much. But students are expressing their support and appreciation for it in several aspects. They like the day rotating. They like that the classes don't meet at the same time every Some of them even highlight the fact that they have siblings at the high school who say, told you we wanted to have that sort of thing. They like the drop-off classes. I think some of them were mentioning because it was disciplines they weren't particularly thrilled to be in, so they liked that it didn't meet every day. But the idea that fewer classes in every day was something several kids expressed some appreciation for, and they absolutely love the day 5 electives. And that's only happened once so far, so it's really pretty funny how positive they were. But it's also funny to hear, I'll sit at the table and one child will say, I really like the old schedule. And I said, well, why? Tell me why. And in one case, he talked about being confused. He was confused about what class means when. One of the other students said, well, did you print out the 5-day rotation? Do you have it? No, I didn't do that. Oh, I'll show you how to do that. So they're even at the table helping each other out to say that I have a strategy for you and it's going to be okay. And even circling back with those students later in the conversation, even later in the day, they said that they felt better about, okay, I think I'll be able to figure that out and I'll understand it. But 60 minutes is 60 minutes for a discipline you don't like, and they certainly express that in different ways. Staff members too shared that they're enjoying the rotating of classes, not seeing students at the same time, right after lunch or end of the day, that sort of thing. It's nice to break that up. And I think that the important aspect of it is that the 60 minutes really allow them to deliver on our plan to implement the instructional frameworks. They've shared, teachers have, that there's certainly a less frenetic pace that allows the lessons to take place, for the guided independent practice to actually happen during that same lesson, having collaborative experiences. And another funny anecdote to that is I was talking to a student, I said, she was asking why we make this switch, and I was talking about some of these pieces, and she said, well, I think the teachers must have really been doing a very good job because it didn't feel frenetic before. But again, even after saying that, appreciated the fact that it does, now that you mentioned it, Mr. H, it feels, a little less crazy. Some teachers shared that they see the students seem calmer with the new schedule, a little less of the hustle and bustle, and that's provided they figure out where they're supposed to be this period and where they're going. There's a little bit of that, no problem, we can show you what's new to all of us, sort of thing. But we're seeing that it's not smooth for all of them, but we recognize for most of them it's true. And it certainly it hasn't been without its bumps. Some aspects I think we need to get used to. We're working out the kinks. Like teachers keeping track of where each class lesson is in classes that have dropped. Look at it from a student perspective. They create their 5-day color-coded schedule and they see the rotation. Teachers are creating color-coded lesson plans to show where they land. So it's just that perspective of where they're coming from. Certainly we're growing into that and we're getting there. And certainly with the altered days of testing and class periods being different lengths has made that a little challenging this week. And these are examples of the sorts of things that we're keeping track of right now because we want to make sure we're not repeating that next year. Where do we want to make those adjustments that we're recognizing? That's probably something we should anticipate for next year, that sort of thing. For example, the classes this week on days where we've had testing, they were from 60-minute periods to 30-minute periods because of the 2-hour testing break. So now, be a teacher in that example. You taught a class on day 1, 60 minutes, on day 2, 30 minutes, and day 3, 60 minutes. So again, there's some juggling there that we need to manage. And just to pause for a second, the teachers are just marvelous about just recognizing that, that's kind of our week. It's going to be a little crazy this week, and it'll be fine next week. The other thing that shouldn't go without saying is just the fact that we've had multiple changes. You mentioned that idea of changes, new grade levels, new teams, and for some new curriculum. And frankly, the teachers have taken on a lot. It's hard not to feel like it's in their wheelhouse just yet, but it's coming. And I must say that teachers are really doing a wonderful job with that, especially in front of the students. In other words, they put out the good face in front of the students, and then they make them and say, oh my goodness, how am I going to do that sort of thing. For students, it's more about that, what did I remember versus what it is now. And like I said, they're really giving a lot of very positive feedback about it and realizing that they're getting accustomed to that. Another quick story, talking about homework. One child said, I'm really not sure how to figure out the homework yet. And one of the other kids says, we're using the Schoology calendar because that helps. And no, I just created a Google. And I got to show you how to do that. It really makes sense. So again, trying to help each other out. And then when they, were told that, they were reminded that, don't you know, Mr. So-and-so showed you that, showed us how to do that on day one? So there's a little bit of that, little reinforcement of that sort of things. And, I'll just end on a highlight, and that is that day 5 really seems to be a highlight for the kids. It's a wonderful middle school moment where they have ungraded moments of choice, where they're able to go and do something that they wouldn't ordinarily get to do. I admitted to you recently about being a little nervous about the archery, but it's working out really well. So, anyway, thank you. And I'll probably go along, but I know you want to hear a little bit about how this goes. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. It's been a good start at Wilton High School. We want to commend our Link crew leaders for welcoming all the freshmen and getting them oriented and helping them start on a positive foot. Tremendous leadership at the high school. We're so proud of the kids. We welcome this very large freshman class, 345 strong. They're acclimating, they're finding their way around. I had the chance to go in and see some flight classes the other day, so that's very helpful with Mrs. Scott and Mrs. Marino to get them oriented and up and running. I think our priority areas are very, very evident and relevant in our classes. Portrait of a graduate, making thinking visible already, and also what I'm describing as Wilton quality instruction. It's as if the place was running smoothly for the last 2 months and things are just moving along, really high quality, rigorous instruction, kids learning, kids engaged. We're proud of the teachers and the students and what's going on in the classrooms. Shout out to our student government. They're already functioning well. They're already planning homecoming. They're looking forward to that under Quinn's leadership. So literally I've been in a couple meetings with them and they're getting ready, talking about the things kids should be talking about, spirit days and dances and blue-white days and just the enjoyment of that. So we're looking forward to that in October. We held grade level meetings with our students last Friday just to kind of set the tone for the school year. I met with the freshmen, Brian met with the sophomores, and outline expectations, let them know the people we have in place to care for them and support them through some of the challenges. We also have the student body president usually come up and say a few words, which he did, and then the class presidents, and we shout out to the advisors. So I just think it's a good way to establish kind of clear expectations across the building and create the culture that we want to create. So we're on our way there. The grade level, senior level meeting the other day was really outstanding. Jacqueline Porco really leading it more than others, but all 5 other counselors up there. And I was proud of our seniors because they just sat there. Kids are distracted nowadays and they have their cell phones right with them, but they really were, I think, in tune. I thought the level of engagement was really good. I thought the counselors put together a really good program for them. And I was just proud to sit there and look at these seniors at the beginning of the year and envision, where they'll be, for example, in approximately another 180 days. They really were well behaved. Couple of rounds of applause for the school counselors in the presentation. And, a lot of new information, just continued use of Naviance and how teachers will support them with recommendations through the college process. And our seniors are excited. So from 9 to 12, things are going well. And Brian, our PTSA and other wonderful things going on.
Sure. I think the last time we were together, we were talking about how the PTSA did a wonderful job of welcoming all the staff back, and then that continued with our orientation the following day, and then just being present ever since. And I know that the executive board from the PTSA made an offer to go out and visit anybody who had questions, and they've already been talking to staff members who had questions. So that's been wonderful to see that partnership. Athletics is up and running. We've had some scrimmages already. Some actual games are right here. We're on the cusp of what we're dealing with some of the weather. So Bobby's been really key at dealing with some of this information coming in from the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Commission about what has to be done with the heat. But I'm sure that everybody's aware that we've had some changes with different practices and things going on this week. But things are good. And another compliment to Athletic Director Rushton. He's been doing some wonderful things with leadership in the athletic department and the program and with the captain. So that's exciting stuff. And we're hoping that spreads even outward from the athletic department too with Bobby's leadership. Our faculty has had a chance to have a few meetings too. So we've jumped into some climate analysis that we have from last year. So we're beginning our process with that. We also had our support staff, our mental health support staff, our student support staff, meet with our teachers and took a little time to just get everybody back on the same page for what's going to be best for students this year and knowing what challenges face them. So, important things to start off the year to make sure that everybody, including the teachers, have the support that they need. And we have various levels of new staff with us. We have some veterans that have come from other districts, and then we have some people who are starting their teaching careers here with us, and everybody seems to be acclimating well. So the varying levels of where they came to us, everybody's finding their way. So not only are the students finding their way, but so is our new staff.
Bob, I have a quick question. The adults who are stationed at different exits, is that something new this year? I've never noticed that before. Like if I come during the middle of the day, I see, like to make sure kids aren't leaving the campus.
The campus supervisors, right?
It's not new.
Is it just heightened?
Well, we deploy them differently. There's actually a new face that you might have seen. We have a new one. And, we're pretty strategic about where we deploy them depending on different things. Not necessarily new, but we're always looking at fresh ways to use them, ways to keep kids safe, to be aware of our surroundings, to make sure that we're, as you may have alluded to, keeping kids on campus when they're supposed to be on campus. So, different deployments.
And how many campus supervisors do we have now? 4, and they're full-time?
They're full-time.
Any other questions for any of our principals? Sounds like everybody's off
Thank you
to the
for all the
races.
work you're doing.
Thank you for all your hard work and for being here tonight, sharing with us.
Thank you.
Okay. District goals.
Great. So I shared with you a draft set of goals. There's a list. They're organized categorically: district operations, governance, and then strategic priorities. And then, within that, you've undoubtedly seen a number of them are carry forward goals. So one of the benefits of having kind of a stable leadership in a district is we can work on things for many years and actually make good continuous improvement. So the first set of goals, as they ought to be, are around student achievement. We've maintained the target of an average of 85% across the district. And it's important to say, I think you saw Jen and Kathy's kind of response to the MAP test. And, this is it's a struggle that we have, right? We're always trying to balance the good, hard work of raising student achievement with ensuring that kids and teachers can participate in the full life of school beyond, straight up academics. That being said, at least for me, we're a school, and so achievement ought to be, our first priority among many priorities. So all of that being said, we've maintained the 85% target, and if you look at the history there, we're chipping away at it. We're getting closer, and so I think it's a reasonable target. I think, we should continue to aspire to it across the district. We continue, as you've already seen, and we'll continue to see in the coming weeks when we get further information from the state. There are a number of areas where we're not only the top in the dirt, but the top in the state. So the areas that I'm really, really proud of are high school, Connecticut school SAT EBRW was the top in the state again. Our math growth, top in the state. Our middle school math, I'm sure, top in the state. 7th grade knocked it out of the park for the second year running, and they all did very well. We had tremendous growth on the SBA at Cider Mill. So, we have pieces in place that, systemically are working in service to growing kids. I was looking last week at our special education achievement, and, while we maintain a gap, our special education achievement has grown tremendously in the last 2 years, and so that gap is closing, which is really great. When Jory was talking to you a minute ago about the introduction of skills blocks at the middle school, I think that's going to be a game changer at that level because kids are getting additional targeted instruction akin to the intervention programs that we run. So I'm really encouraged by all that. So both for ELA and mathematics, we'll propose a district average. I think part of the challenge here too is just really managing the message. And so last year in particular, some of our staff, just kind of internalized this idea that the only thing we care about is student achievement. And that's not true. We absolutely care about student achievement, but we also really commit to our beliefs about the whole child. And so you'll see I added a third piece of that because I think one of our challenges is we don't have good tools for measuring everything that we value. And so what I'm proposing that we do as part of our work around student achievement and goal development is that we develop a multiple measure tool that includes student achievement, but also looks at student growth and development beyond achievement. And so what I'm really imagining is taking a deeper dive into our Portrait of a Graduate work and coming up with some ways or kicking around some ideas of how do we measure growth there. So, as we kind of work in service of these commitments, we can really see steady progress. That makes sense? And I think, to the comment a minute ago, also helping, the rest of the community, see and understand that when we talk about the whole child, we really do mean the whole child, and it's not just myopically how well they did on a single measure in May. Relatedly, we've proposed some targets around our special education and just continuing to close the gap between the achievement of our general ed kids and our special ed kids. Also tied to the broader student achievement goal, we have building DEI committees that do really, really fabulous work across the building. They've been focused, I would say generally on cultural enrichment kinds of activities. The DEI policy that you adopted, I think 2 years ago, spoke specifically to using the district committee to look at subgroup data and identify areas of disproportionality. And so I'd hoped to really engage in that work last year. We just didn't get there, so it's a goal for this year. So Chuck and I working together with some others will organize that and try to move that forward. We have maintained for all the years I've been here a culture and climate goal, which, again, in service to the development of the whole school, whole child, we maintain here. So we use the Panorama survey. So what we're shooting for is an average of 80% on the total relationship score, which is a measure within the Panorama survey that we use. That is targeted specifically to students. The principals working with the staffs are already engrossed in conversations about the climate and culture work and how to improve that, as they have been for many years. I've added a specific goal area, and it's really not fleshed out yet, to address the adult climate in our schools. And so I've been worried over the course of last year for a variety of reasons. One, just at a broad level, the national narrative today around public education is tough. And so a lot of the headlines are consumed with stories about book bans and, the teachers not doing what they need to do. And I just worry about that at a macro level, and just what that means for, the professionalism of our staff. We're seeing some early indicators, and I don't know that it's correlated, of, young people not entering the profession today because of just the challenges that our teachers face. So, big picture, as you're very well aware, for some of our folks, last year was a tough year. The schedule change at Middlebrook, even the team changes, was really, really hard. The ripple effects of people being moved into different buildings was really, really hard. And so, I'm thinking very specifically about, that population of staff, but I think just in general, we really need to look at the well-being of our staff and professionally as an organization, the conditions that we provide and, how we just work and support people. And so, we have some climate data that we gathered at the end of last year. We'll dive into that, and then I'll come back to you with, specifically, kind of what those target areas could be. But, that's in a big picture what I'm thinking about. again, some things that we were moving forward with years ago and were interrupted by the pandemic. We had a great initiative with our greenhouses and with the community gardens and Chartwells, where we were, growing some of our own food and, preparing it in our culinary classes, and then, partnering with the food service program to, expand some of that work, across the school. So I'm really interested in reinvigorating that, of carrying forward and re-enlivening the zero waste efforts that we've made over the last few years. So that's something we'll continue to work on. Chuck, our administrators here in the room, and so many other teachers have been coming through the pandemic really appropriately focused on unfinished learning. We've leaned heavily on the acceleration framework that we've talked a lot about in the last couple of years. We like to say around here that it's representative of just really good teaching. It works. It's the right model for us. And I think we have 2 years worth of standardized assessment data to back that up. And so we continue that work. Bob mentioned, building thinking classrooms a minute ago. So we're really interested in working with a couple of professionals who are looking at, task design and student engagement and really bringing thinking to life in a different way. And so that'll be, kind of within that acceleration framework. That'll be the focus area for this year. We've got to talk about next Friday, because we're also going to bring back the practice of classroom visitations. We had a practice of engaging in learning walks and instructional rounds, and really collectively building the capacity of our administrators and participating teachers, and diagnosing instruction and addressing kind of big rock kinds of problems. And so that's a practice I'm anxious to begin at Cider Mill on the 22nd. He and I didn't connect on that today. We will. Let's see. Perfect. That's great. So great news that in a little bit I'm going to walk you through, not all, but a number of the statutory changes that were adopted this last legislative cycle. One of the ones that I am very excited about is the revision to the laws around teacher evaluation and supervision. So years ago, 2012, the state adopted, in my opinion, a very misguided approach to teacher evaluation. Required us to rank and weigh various facets of their practice, and it made no sense for schools. And after more than 10 years, it's yielded us nothing as a profession. And so
that was all federally driven.
It was tied to Race to the Top money, so it was not a local initiative by any stretch of the imagination. So the state legislators have let that go entirely, and have produced some guidelines that require school districts to be standards-based in their approach to evaluation, which is fine. There are numerous standards. We have some good ones in place here, but have really opened up the opportunity to design plans in consultation with our staff and in partnership with our staff that really work to focus on the growth of our teachers. So it's a tremendous opportunity. Chuck is going to facilitate that work this year, but by the end of this year, it's my expectation that we'll have a plan that hopefully everybody's happy with, but if not the majority, that I think really will serve teachers better than what we currently have. In terms of district operations, thinking about fiscal responsibilities, even with the challenges of the last 2 weeks, we will manage our expenditures within the current appropriation. As we do annually, we'll engage in a budget development process that addresses our key priorities and advances and invests in the district vision and is fiscally disciplined. And so I think that middle piece about really advancing the vision, we've made some headway, but we've also made a lot of choices in service to trying to manage the bottom line. And so this year, when we come forward with a budget, I'm really going to work hard to try to call out investment areas that move us forward. And so, that working with, cost center leaders across the district, that'll be something that, I think will be a different dimension of the conversation than we've had in the last few years. We completed the transportation study, so we had a consultant work with us beginning last spring we will come forward with a set of recommendations from that study that I think will be an opportunity to save money. And so we'll review that, we'll bring it forward, and then that'll be part of the budget process as well. Under the teaching and learning category, we're implementing the new STEM course at Middlebrook. The kind of early feedback, Danielle Bottinger is running that class this year. It sounds like she's doing a great job. And the couple times I've stopped by, it looks like she's having fun. The kids are, coding and flying drones right now, but that's exciting, as you know, and Fran will update in a minute about where we are with the just the STEM curriculum review. We've got some more work to do there, but we'll pay attention to that course, and then again, it's my expectation that we'll come forward in November as part of the new course proposal process with some robotics courses for the high school, and really make some meaningful progress in the development of our STEM curriculum. Here, as a group, the Board of Ed has been just kind of working on its own operations and effectiveness. We've instituted governance team meetings again, so it'll be my recommendation that we continue those on a semi-monthly calendar. We committed to using a question document just to track the questions that are asked and the answers, and so that's created, we have it. I don't know if it's yet shared with you, it's in Google Drive, but there's a flurry of questions beginning with your question last time we met about the voluntary insurance. So we'll just use that as a log, right? So that way, things don't fall off the table and get lost. And then in service to good governance, really working hard to align all of the agendas to the goals and priorities. Contract management, we negotiated, I think, 3 contracts last year. So we have WASA, that's the administrator's contract, is up for renegotiation. So we'll actually begin that process later this month. And so, I fully expect that we'll come to a good agreement that works for everybody. We have some important goals around communication. The communications task force that the board adopted last spring met for the first time yesterday, and really generated a lot of good, robust conversation. And so, as I was watching the meeting unfold and engaging, I think, we had kind of one idea about how we were going to move forward, and the committee members really had some different ideas about what they thought would be most effective. So we're pivoting. And so really what that is to say, I think what we were imagining is we would have at the end of, 4 or 5, 6 meetings over the course of the year, a plan. The recommendation from the committee members was, rather than think broadly like that, let's focus on some discrete facets within the whole communication paradigm. And so we're going to pivot, and that's how we'll operate. And so, I think we'll, build the plan and implement recommendations as we go across this year. Just thinking about all of the work that needs to be done, I expect that this will become at least a 2-year process to get to the end of it. We're being guided by NISPRA, which is one of the national professional relations communications firms, and so they've got a set of standards that are quite lengthy and thorough. And so we're going to pick a set of standards for each meeting and focus on some piece of our operation, compare practice, make some changes, and then move forward.
And who's on that task force then?
It's a range of folks. So Nicola is on representing the board. Fran is chairing it. We have a couple of the administrators from the buildings. We have a number of parents from across the school, so some PTA members.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think if we have any teachers participating. I can't. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it's it's broad-based.
Awesome.
Again, tied to that, implementing Parent Square. So one of the things we learned yesterday, Parent Square, for folks at home who are listening, Parent Square is the new and improved school messenger. So some of the feedback that our PTA folks were sharing as they were interacting with some of their parent counterparts was that people just didn't understand what the tool was, and so didn't download the app. So Parent Square is our communications tool, our primary tool. It's very robust. We're going to take the next 6 months to roll into all the features, and so if you haven't downloaded it, download it, please. And we're going to grow into its use. And then, kind of lastly, just within that broad kind of communication domain, an area of interest that I have that I hoped to pick up last year and just didn't have the bandwidth for, frankly, was to really look at our parent-teacher conference structure. My general sense is, while it's okay, it really doesn't work the way it could work. And so I'm keenly interested in, getting in front of our staff and having some conversations with them about what would really be more effective, and similarly with parents, and see if we can come up with, a different approach to, just better fostering relationships and communication between teachers and staff in service to the children that, we all love. So stand by on that one.
Are we doing Zoom conferences still, or yet, at the elementary levels?
I asked my staff
For
on
working parents?
Wednesday, we said we would offer a choice, because sometimes it's nice even if one parent can be in person.
Oh, yeah, and not have two parents have to take the day, and,
Right,
yeah,
so it's nice to have.
yeah.
That's what we're gonna do.
I think that's awesome.
Them all in person.
No, I mean offering a Zoom.
But if somebody wanted to.
I mean, if there was a extenuating circumstance, I'm sure a teacher would do so, by practice, face to face.
Yeah, and so it's great because I think there's variability across schools. I think Middleborough, my experience as a dad was I had the option to check in person or, to Zoom in if that was, the better way. So, so I think, more to come on that as we, kind of get into the whole conversation about how to do it better. Jen asked a little bit ago about the facilities master plan, so we'll have a plan in the coming weeks. And then we'll have, I think, the opportunity for lots of good conversation at this table about what the priorities should be. I think we'll have an opportunity to work with the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen to try to get consensus around those priorities, and then, hopefully with this coming, budget, be able to actually, move forward. And then kind of lastly here, we got great feedback from the Tri-State Consortium in February when they were here, asking questions about our Portrait of a Graduate development. So we are going to continue the curriculum mapping work that's underway. So, Chuck and company have tweaked some of the templates to allow that to happen. We began some work when our administrators gathered this summer, and then we scheduled several dates over the course of this year to work with administrators and other district staff to drive that forward. Last but not least, last year you approved the creation of a mental health task force, and so we'll pick up and carry that forward as well.
So, a lot to,
Whoa, those are lofty goals. Good ones.
As always.
Yeah, of course.
We're busy.
Good ones though.
so, it would be my recommendation that if there's any questions for Kevin tonight or over the next week, we can submit them, think on this, and that we as a board adopt this set of goals or this final version of these goals at the table to guide our work for the coming year.
Did we skip over the personnel changes, or we're gonna go back to that?
That was on the consent
That's the
agenda.
consent.
Okay, so we don't have to go through it.
Yeah.
Just had a question on
Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to bring up now? I think, I was just sitting and listening, I think under the governance and Board of Education operations, I'd like to see if we could also just add a goal in there for there to be individual superintendent and board member meetings, maybe according to trimester or semester, however.
Sure.
Yeah, but just to make sure that that kind of gets scheduled for everybody. And then we can go through I had some questions about
The
the
evaluation, but it's probably more tied into the legislative changes, so we can just.
look at that when that comes.
Okay. Legislative update.
Great. So you have the memo that Jessica Richmond Smith from Shipping Good prepared. You think we're busy. Last year, the state legislature was very busy, so there is a host of new laws and regulations that impact the operations of schools. I'm not going to hit every one of these, but I did want to just name for people, the big ones. So we were talking about indoor air quality earlier tonight. So there are changes to the statute relative to managing and monitoring school indoor air quality. Beginning on January 1st, 2024, boards of education will be required to provide for uniform indoor air quality inspections and evaluations within each school on an annual basis using the EPA's Tools for Schools program. So that's a process we already have in place, and we do use. The difference, we haven't always come back and reported out to the board on those findings. The teams would meet 2 or 3 times a year, more if there was an issue, but the reporting requirement now necessitates that the teams come to the board, make an update, and then the information gets posted to the website. And so, Jose's been very good about posting like the other IAQ studies, but I don't think the Tools for Schools digests have been posted, so we'll do that. Similarly, there was already an existing law that the HVAC systems need to be inspected and evaluated every 5 years. So we, back in 2020 and then again in 2021, had a commissioning agent come through and look at all of our systems. And so, I'm considering, 21 kind of our baseline year. But as we build the budget for next year, we'll make sure, I think that'll be probably year 4 for us at that point. But we'll have funds in the budget to, again, just commission our systems, and then we'll keep up with that schedule going forward. So one of the major changes, as I think Jen named earlier, was the raising of the kindergarten start age. So it's Public Act 23-159, and that act requires that children turn 5 years old on or before September 1st in order to enroll in kindergarten. And so we've gotten a number of questions about that. The other piece of the change in the law stipulates that schools and the elementary school principal can have a process for overriding that age cutoff. And so some of the work that we need to do is to really elaborate on what that process is going to look like. We've had instances in the past where we've gotten requests, and so, and we've worked through the school psychologist or other, professional staff on site to try to do a readiness evaluation, but given the change in the law, we just need to formalize the process. So, I'll be working with Kathy and Bertha and some others to really flesh that out in policy. The State Department of Education is supposed to offer guidance, since this is a state level change. Just no disrespect to anyone in that office, but there's not a track record of guidance coming in a timely manner. And so I think what we'll do in lieu of that is really also work in concert with the school districts around us to just gather information and make sure that we're kind of proceeding consistently. So those conversations will start up very soon. It's my intention to have proposed policy end of this month, early October, if we can kind of get all the information we need.
Can I just, for clarification,
Sure.
The adoption of a policy by the board, would that serve as a vote by a duly called meeting to admit children under 5, and then as long as that policy is in place, that follows?
That's a good, we need to
Or-
ask Jessica that
okay.
question. Because the way that I read that was if a family petitions then, the board can vote to allow the kid. It's kind of a strange
Right,
feature that
or
was.
is it, we set the policy in place and is it a
Yeah.
policy that serves the vote that then would permit the
Right.
administration to?
It's a great question, and I think we just need to understand, what the intent of the law is there.
Are you guys also, I know we talked about this briefly the other day, but are we also going to have some guidance towards redshirting? Or are we gonna start the whole thing all over again?
It's to be determined, and I think, what we're able to do, is defined by law. And so,
Right.
I don't know how much discretion we get beyond that, or we would even want to take. But I think that's a reasonable concern, right? Another substantive change for us is the change in age for special education eligibility. So, up until this law was adopted, and so actually if you kind of go back in time, students who were in special education would age out at age 21. That law was then extended to age 22, and it's been modified again, so it's at the end of the school year of a student's 22nd birthday. So that just has the net effect of, depending on where the birthday falls, we'll be holding on to kids a bit longer. So there are cost implications there as well that we need to be aware of. Another major change around the statutes governing bullying, and so the definition of bullying has changed. There is a new feature in the law that speaks to the use of restorative practices, and so Kim Zemo has been pretty heavily involved in tracking those changes. So coming to the policy committee and then to the full board later this year will be recommended policy changes and procedures around identification support of bullying based on new statutory guidelines.
And do we already have a form? I was reading that there's like a bullying form, so that's already in place.
Yeah, our policy fully reflects the law as it was, previously, right. So kind of tied to that, there's a new policy called the Restorative Practices Response Policy, and so that requires boards of education to adopt restorative practices response policy to be implemented by school employees for incidents of challenging behavior, which is a new term in the law, right? So they're trying to parse out this idea of what's bullying versus what's challenging behavior, and then how can schools more effectively respond to that? And so this idea of having a restorative practice policy speaks to that idea. A number of instructional changes. So beginning in 25-26, there's a new statute that adds civics and media literacy to the social studies program of instruction. So I think we've got civics pretty well covered. We address media literacy in small ways, but now we'll have to kind of go back and look at that and formalize the curriculum. So we've got some work to do there. The legislature required that the SDE develop model curriculum that includes cursive writing and world languages beginning in grades kindergarten. There is no requirement that boards of education adopt that model curriculum, but that is a signal about the importance of both of those things.
We at least teach our kids how to sign their name.
Mine got taught?
Ours did not.
Yeah, Jen, ours didn't even call cursive, did they?
No, we
Yeah.
got a book that said teach them on their
Yeah,
own
third
time.
grade, right.
Moving on.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So a new statute that addresses play-based learning during preschool, kindergarten, and in grades 1 to 5. And so I would say we are well ahead of the curve on that one, since the idea of play has been embedded into our
That was a big push for that,
DNA here for a while. Yes.
big push.
So we'll have to, when we get the language of the statute, we'll just have to make sure we're in compliance. Also, under the area of new required instruction is the mandate that All students beginning with this current year's freshman class, the class of 27, receive financial literacy instruction. We have a financial literacy course that is right now, it's an elective, and so working with Bob and Brian, we're going to have to map out how we ensure that all kids take that while they're here in high school. I am absolutely certain there will be FTE implications there, since that's a very small department presently. All right, so some of the other highlights here, teacher performance evaluation. So we spoke about that. Ruth, do you have specific questions? Because I don't know there's any.
My just question is that it seemed to me that the work got funneled through a committee.
All teacher evaluations are funneled through our PEAL committee, which
Right.
is the Professional Evaluation and Learning Committee.
And so the creation of the new program would be through that
We
committee.
actually met this week and began looking at the legislation
Okay.
and having discussions about what could this look like.
Okay, so I just wanted to, we already had that committee active
I believe the
and,
board will still have to approve it if I understand
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
So that committee would come forth with a recommended
Recommendation.
plan and you guys would vote on it.
So there's no changes in the field, the committee just stays the same? We already have that in place, so we don't.
We already had it in place. There have been some changes. Some people have left. Some people no longer serve. So there is somewhat of a rotating membership, but there are also a core group of people who serve now. The WEA gets to appoint some members to that committee as well.
So there are others. You
Yeah.
can kind of read at your leisure, and so we'll just organize and prioritize. Most of this will funnel through the policy committee first, since they're all pretty much tied to policy changes or new policies, and then make its way to the full board for adoption.
yeah. I think we can organize it by places that we already have most of the work done, and then also by some of them are pushed out later in terms of like when.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other questions for Kevin on this at the moment?
Always an adventure, right? Most highly regulated industries on the face of the earth.
Pharmaceuticals pretty regulated.
Well, no doubt.
Kept me in for many years. Curriculum review update.
Okay. So what I thought I'd do today is just kind of bring you up to date. We had 2 curriculum reviews last year, kind of tell you what we've accomplished so far, and then give you a little preview of what we're going to do this year in terms of curriculum reviews. And then Fran will give us an update on the never-ending STEM review process. Okay, so in science, we reviewed science and social studies last year. So as Kevin had mentioned, there are some things that are being done in the area of science. But I did want to remind everybody, for those of you who were on the curriculum review committees, this is going to be a little redundant, but in grades 3 to 5, we are going to be returning to teaching 3 full science units. You may recall that following the pandemic, we did a little bit of curriculum compacting down to 2 units in each of those subject areas so that we could find some time to provide additional instruction in reading and math. At this point, through Jen's creative scheduling, we're now able to return that time to science and social studies, and so they will be doing 3 full units. Those units are not new. They were developed in 21. They're CREC units, the Capital Region Educational Council's units, and the teachers are familiar with them, so we'll just be going back to doing that. Grade 6 worked over the summer to prepare to pilot the 3 Open SciEd units beginning in late October. Grade 7 will pilot 1 unit later in the year. A recommendation regarding full adoption of Open SciEd will be made based upon the experience with the pilot units. If adoption is recommended, we'll phase in the curriculum as we did with illustrative math, 6th grade, then 7th grade, then 8th grade. That way, no student will have a gap in what they're experiencing. This school year, a platform known as Inner Orbit will be used as a classroom-based form of the assessment. It's not a standardized test, it's for teachers to determine what's next in the learning, and that'll be used in grades 6 through 8 and in grade 10 and 11. But we will be doing the NWEA map once at the end of 9th grade in science. They offer a science one, just so that we can see how kids are progressing and respond to any gaps in their science knowledge.
In May, then?
Probably around May, yeah. you recall, we only test for science in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. And so the high school science teachers in particular felt that it would be helpful to have a better gauge of how kids are progressing towards mastering the NGSS standards. We figured, we'll try it and see if it's helpful. In social studies, unfortunately, we only had a draft of new standards when we began summer curriculum work. They were supposed to be ready in March, and then they were supposed to be ready in June. So we went with the draft standards, but we decided to focus on grades 3 to 8, because that's where the heavier lift was curriculum-wise. We're going to defer K to 2 until 2024. The 3 to 5 teachers, again, will return to teaching 3 full social studies units. And in grades 3 to 8, the curriculum teams began the work of aligning the existing units to the new state standards and then organizing them thematically to promote opportunities for transdisciplinary learning. Fortunately, the new standards were already organized thematically in draft form, so the teams focused on identifying possible points of curriculum integration across subject areas and creating opportunities to integrate the portrait of the graduate attributes, classroom-based performance, civics, and inquiry. There are a number of required topics that have been legislated recently, specifically around Indigenous peoples, veterans, African American, and Latino histories. The curriculum teams have begun to evaluate our existing courses and units to lay the groundwork for future additions to the curriculum. At Willard High School, we've begun discussing how to reimagine the African American and Latino studies course. We haven't really been able to run that course. It's offered because of enrollment. We haven't actually run the class. So we have several options and hope to make a recommendation this semester so that it can be included in the program of studies for next year. We want to try to cast a wide net. And finally, we'll also have a 6141 proposal in the works for a new area studies course that we hope to present to you in the fall. Okay. So this year we're going to look at math and world languages. And I don't really want to preempt the process, which is supposed to be organic and is supposed to be driven by stakeholder feedback, looking at data, but I do think there are some things that we will be looking at in terms of math, specifically examining how the changes we made as a result of the last curriculum review, what impact has that had on learning, although Kevin kind of preempted that pretty much it's been positive, right? Highest growth in math. And that particularly the course sequence changes. I do believe we should formally recommend adoption and implementation of illustrative math K to 8. I know we're all thinking that's kind of a done deal, but I think we should make it formal. And I do think we should at least explore other course pathways, sorry it's late, that could or should be added at the secondary level. So we'll be looking at what other districts are doing, in Connecticut, beyond Connecticut. And, we have to think about financial literacy. That's a new requirement. Should that be folded into this curriculum review process? So,
Are you thinking expanding math offerings at the secondary level?
yes. We have greatly expanded the pathways that kids can take, but I think we can even do some more things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm particularly interested in data analysis. Calculus is fine, it's good, but that might not be what most kids need when they're going to college and careers. Big data is a big thing, right? And I'm not sure we're doing enough of that. So just, that's one aspect that I think we could look at. In terms of world language, again, I don't want to preempt the process, but if you do want to look at how our world language program compares to other Durgay districts, we want to look at the degree of vertical curriculum alignment in grades 3 to 12. I think when you have 4 schools, they can be a little bit of islands, a little bit. So we want to make sure that what's done at Cider Mill and at Middlebrook and the high school is all aligned. I know the staff are very interested in taking a look at performance-based assessments and incorporating attributes of the portrait of graduate. World languages is a wonderful place to do many of those attributes, or to address many of those attributes. the ILs, the world language ILs, are very interested in studying the impact of special ed and academic interventions on student participation in the world language program and how we might mitigate that impact as students progress through the grade levels. I think Middlebrook is trying to do that, we mentioned the introductory course, but I think we should study that a little bit more carefully. So, just a little preview. Any questions?
Any questions for Chuck?
We'll be calling on some of you for math and world language.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the math review.
Me too.
For the last couple of weeks, I've been looking at all of the changes we've made since 2019, and it's a great case study in systemic change, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor without question.
I'm looking forward to the language.
Muy bien. Fran, gonna give us 2 minutes
Oh,
on.
yes. Fran's gonna talk a little bit about STEM.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. So this is just an update on where we are with our STEM curriculum review, and specifically focusing on Middlebrook and high school, what we've done since the last time we spoke to the board. This is actually our third and final year of this review. We've been essentially focusing on different aspects of STEM, as it is a very large area of growth that we found as we were doing this review. So just a couple of things. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the high school course offerings. Over the summer, Mr. Millian has been researching a variety of different curriculum programs and has outlined courses that you'll see a little bit more about. I'll go through 6141 proposal later this fall. The courses that we're going to be suggesting are going to basically complement what's already being offered and really complete the pathway so that students that are interested in there's been a lot of demand on Christian scenic religious courses, and the students will actually really provide the offerings that students have been looking for. One is a second AP computer science course, the AP computer science principles course, and then 2 additional courses that will be semester courses on a really important topic, cybersecurity. So maybe cybersecurity 1 and 2 for students. This will provide students that have this interest and are going for further in their college studies, courses that they'd be able to take throughout the time that they have at the high school. As you heard at Middlebrook, we're very excited that we're able to launch the high STEM course this year.
Thank you, Fran. And thank you, Chuck. Any questions? There's a lot of exciting work happening. Yeah. Enrollment.
Great, so just very, very briefly, as you see, we are we're at projections in one grade, above projections in every other grade, and actually we're just this week slightly below in kindergarten. So we are about 70 kids more than we projected, and we'll see, kind of things are still, stabilizing over the course of the next couple of weeks, but we'll see where we are in October. But I imagine we're probably about where we're going to be for the year. Interestingly, we're substantially above projections in grade 1, 5, 7, and 9, and for the last 2 years, historically we've seen a dip in 9th grade as kids leave Middlebrook and then go off to other places, and this is the second year running where we're well over, so they're all coming, and they're bringing friends.
We do a good job.
Yeah, to have
Any of the increases have budget implications? Did we hire?
Well, so we added, earlier this summer, we added an open section of kindergarten, which I think was absolutely the right thing to do. Those kids, they come in and they're all, learning school for the first time, so, we were able to create a new classroom there and lower class size a little bit and just help, kind of just better support the transition into formal schooling. The other area that I'm concerned about, Chuck has been talking to me this week, is just the increase in the number of our MLL students. And so, we've continued to kind of support them with 2 staff members. We used to have one, we had 1.5, and now we have 2. And I don't think it's enough.
Is that across the board?
They're across the district. Chuck was telling me today with kids here who have no English.
No English, and I think we had 4.
And is that like it's one specific school?
No, there's one at the high school, one at Middlebrook, a couple at Center Mill, I think, too.
Wow.
Are they shared languages? I'm just curious if they're.
I don't know the specific languages.
Yeah, so that's an area. So we don't have the budget today to add staff to support that. So I asked Chuck to go into, tap into the principals, tap into Andrea. Let's look at the resources we have and see if we can redeploy to provide some additional support to these kids. But just mark a calendar. This will be a proposal coming forward with the budget. In terms of other budget implications, I don't think so.
So none of that big grade.
They get this whole high school, right?
And the kindergarten teacher was offset by tuition paying students, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Any other?
That's a big 9th grade.
Any other
Oh, 9th
questions?
graders are proud.
They're
Should
very.
be the biggest
Right?
task
Yeah.
in high school.
Jen, she
Little
has-
fish, but
right.
they feel so big because we're
And
so
they're
many
very
of them.
excited all the new students.
That's right. There are several of us who have
Yeah.
27s.
Yeah. And I think the 3 of our kids probably make up for at least like 4 kids. Their personality.
Mine counts as 2.
So no possible action items for tonight. Future board business and information items. September 21st is our next meeting, then October 5th, and then October 19th. And I will put a plug out there, I believe on the 17th, right, there's going to be the author talk for
You're testing my recall.
Um,
I'll trust you.
Yes, Ginny Wallace will be,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Jennifer
so-
Wallace will be here on the
Yeah,
17th,
never
so
know.
we'll add that in so people
Great.
know about that, so, and they can calendar that. And we also now come back to comments from the public, if there are any. None online, none in the room. So at 8:34, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So,
That's good. That's then driving back to that target.